this tweet here that I've got up, it's a Rebecca Jane, and she is a contributor on the GBU's channel. She tweeted, "My phone is lit up about Phillip Schofield. Let me be clear on my stance. 10 years I was on that show, talking about This Morning. There's a super injunction in place to stop the truth. Many people covered despicable behaviour because they had to protect their assets and themselves. Mainstream media lie." No shit, mainstream media lie. But then, Dan Wootton says, to clarify a couple of things on Phillip Schofield, there never was a super injunction. But when I went to ITV management with Story in November 2019, they refused to launch an investigation, even though the runner was deeply unhappy. Huge questions now for Carol and McCall. Right, okay. But now, you see a tweet here. Bushra, she's a contributor for GBUs also. So it's 3 GBUs contributors here. But she says, alarm emoji, a cover-up. Call Schofield for what he is, the disgraced presenter. I share some independent thoughts about the slowly unravelling Phillip Schofield scandal. Too little too late for exposing this when many knew about it years ago. A super injunction allowed for this to be hidden and brushed under the carpet. Predatory behaviour, abuse of trust and grooming. Seen it happen so many times. Right. So go back to Dan's tweet. Then Rebecca's. And then Bushra's tweet. So you've got 2 people saying that there is a super injunction and one saying that there isn't. So I tend to believe that, personally, that probably the two out of 3, the two people are telling the truth here. It's like if you had 10 people in a room and you showed them this one guy and he said, and you asked them, is this guy a serial killer? Let's say 7 of them said yes, 3 said no. I'd probably believe the 7 that said yes. So there's all this stuff. Dan Wootton, right away when the news broke on Friday that Phil had an affair, he was one of the first people to say, hey, I knew about it all along. I tried to say. He wanted us to give him a pat on the back and give him credit. But there's so much more to this. And I've touched on this in my videos about Dan Wootton. Exposed him for, basically he's a hypocrite. You could say he's just a typical tabloid guy with no morals. Or he's just a total bold-faced, wicked, pathological liar. I've been doing my digging into this stuff, but I mean, this is the thing. I mean, I couldn't overlook this with Dan. I for a while I thought Dan was one of the good guys in GBUs, but I couldn't overlook it. And there's a lot of people that online they're not overlooking it either with Dan. You see this tweet here, Charlotte Emma. Does Dan Wootton suffer from early onset Alzheimer's, or is he just a bit of a dick? I tend to think it's the latter. But when you do some digging into this, you really, there's so much more to this story. There's really so much more to this. And there's a Byline Investigations. Byline Investigations, a team of London-based journalists, and they cover stories about other media organisations. So you got the Sun, the Mail, the Mirror. Byline Investigations, they have this title here, and this goes back to March the 9th, 2020. So I believe this was 2 days after Phillip came out publicly on This Morning. And it says here, you Sun Chief Wootton, who had just started, sorry, this was a month after, sorry, but it says, you Sun Chief Wootton blackmailed Phillip Schofield to come out on live TV. Victoria Wootton. She was a You Sun editor-in-chief, and she just started on the job. It was literally her first day on the job. And she used these tactics to impress the boss, Rebecca Brooks. And that was the one that was caught up in the whole phone hacking scandal, all the charges. But she was in court. She was declared not guilty on this, to make that clear. But, and then it has here, underneath, controversial Sun man Dan Wootton confronted Mr. Schofield about sexuality, telling him a story could soon out him before. And then there was a crisis team of ex-Murdoch employees acted for Schofield to broker a deal, and this is what they call blackmail journalism. You know, it's standard in this industry. Some of the stuff here. So Miss Wootton enacted her iron fist with a velvet glove plan, and she sent Dan Wootton to front up Schofield with allegations that he had been member in a relationship with a male member of ITV staff. And they had said, you know, the Murdoch-owned paper, that he was just so guilty of hypocrisy in professional and personal life, because they're beacons of virtue, right? And what happened, they ended up being an agreement in place that Phil was going to reveal all to the Sun, but then also that the agreement would be that he would first reveal it publicly on TV on This Morning, and then it happened on a Friday of all days. Because some people must have found that was a little odd, that on the final day, because it's always a Monday to Friday program, that he just out of nowhere revealed that he was coming out publicly as gay. That must have set some alarm bells off, probably, I imagine, with people at a subconscious level, right? Surely. Because you maybe would have thought, well, Monday, you know, they've thought about it over the weekend when it comes to, like, should I do it now, thinking about the show, the format, and maybe it would be Monday, maybe it would even be midweek, but Friday of all days, that must have seemed that was a bit odd, right? But in the end, what happened was they agreed a deal, and this was a deal with Phil's management company, James Grant Management, and they brokered a deal. You see this here, and this is the thing about Dan Wootton, right? This sums up his character in a nutshell, really. I think the quote here: "I'm like more fool you if you don't want to brief me. Then you don't have an opportunity to try and get the story shaped in a way that works for you." And this is the same guy right away, the day after Phil came out, was talking about how brave he was and how that was great. And then they had their little exchange, Dan and Phil. We've got it here. They had their little exchange, Dan and Phil. "Oh, thank you so much, Dan, and I've read your book already." It's such a big, giant shit show. It is what it is. It's just, and then you've got all the stuff, obviously, with Dan Wootton and Eamon Holmes. They're going to be doing a big tell-all. It's going to be 9 o'clock, 9 to 11, that show is that Dan does. But, I mean, Dan, obviously, there's a lot more. Dan knows the deal. Dan is hiding something. Now, does that mean that Eamon's hiding something? I don't know. But my whole thing is, the timing of it was awful. I don't know the timing, because people say that Eamon and Ruth got the sack off This Morning, but did they exactly get the sack? I mean, I'm looking for, again, I don't watch the show. From Wikipedia, it said that Eamon left in 2021, ended up going on GBUs that year, and then Ruth was still on the show until 2022. So was that the reason? But this paper, though, that the Sun that Dan used to work for, I mean, some of the stuff, I mean, there's something here that they had secretly taped Ashley Cole whilst having a breakdown. They had allegedly secretly taped him. He was having a breakdown. He was injured. Marriage with Cheryl Cole had fallen apart. I was suffering from depression. Went to therapy, and they allegedly had filmed him while he was having a breakdown. And we've heard all this stuff about the paper getting sued, multiple celebrities, phone hacking, and all this stuff. It's not. And then Sun is not a paper I read. It's a bloody paper that 8-year-olds could read. It's just really lowbrow, and it's never been a paper for me. I'm more of a Daily Mail kind of person. Maybe that's not saying a hell of a lot, but yeah, but there more and more stuff gradually will come out. It's been a bit of, I think, of a slow use day to day with all this stuff, but more and more stuff will come out about this. There's the stuff that Martin Frizzell, editor of This Morning, that a meeting was arranged. That's what, according to Byline Investigates. So the higher ups in This Morning, that's one thing when Dan says they, I mean, yeah, they you, Dan, but then you know more as well about this story that you're not letting on. And they said here that Miss Houghton, she would have been Dan's boss in the Sun, the editor of the Sun. She just started as the editor. She was compelled before the deal was brokered. She signed a non-disclosure agreement before discussions even took place that they were going to have this deal, and this was going to this is going to go down like this, going to do it this way. She signed a non-disclosure agreement. So I don't know if that's what they say. According to Byline Investigates, would Dan Wootton, would he, in that case, if Houghton signed one, would Dan Wootton have signed one also? But they're saying that it was arranged between Schofield, Miss Houghton, and then there's Martin Fizel, their editor of This Morning. So Martin Fizel, he knows something, and that's one thing, because people have been named. You know, I think Eamon touched on 4 people high up in the ITV, and then Dan minutes later then named the names. I think that was a planned out that was a planned out thing by them two, you know, if you ask me. And now those guys are going on Dan Wootton's show. So now I guess Eamon's going to reveal all. Is he about Phillip Schofield? I mean, is he? I thought maybe personally that maybe Eamon would wait and sell his story to the papers, or he would wait to do a tell-all book, you know, the secrets of This Morning or something